Today for Extra Tuesday on Geek Devotions, we're going to be talking about context, and hopefully I'll pass the class. Hello and welcome to Geek Devotions, the show from Devoted Geeks who are devoted to letting people know that they are loved. I am Celeste, and we are so glad that you have hit play today. Do us a favor, if you don't watch past this point, know that you are loved, you are cared for, and there is a plan and a purpose for your life. Like I said in the intro, we're going to be getting into the discussion of the importance of context when studying the Bible. Now, let me quickly explain the pass the class comment. As some of you may know, I'm going through the process of getting my credentials to be a minister with the Assemblies of God, and one of my classes is Intro to Hermeneutics. Now, that's a fun word. Let's break that down real quick and explain it by using a quote from the course itself. Biblical hermeneutics is the branch of knowledge that deals with interpretation. The word most often refers to how to interpret the Bible or other sacred texts from other religions. This is not to be confused with exegesis, where exegesis refers to the interpretation of a specific biblical text. Hermeneutics is deciding which principles we will use in order to interpret the text. Okay, now to break that down, hermeneutics is a study of the Bible, what it's saying in context, and how to apply it to ourselves as a whole. Whereas the word exegesis means to study portions of Bible passages and determine what it says in context and how it applies to ourselves. Now, there are a lot of principles you can use when you're studying the Bible, but today we're going to be talking about the importance of understanding the different forms of context. And there's quite a few different things, but we're going to start out by talking about historical context. The Bible is considered to be the most historically and archaeologically accurate book. So because of that, we need to remember that it's not a book of fantasy. Brandon Sanderson didn't write this, and it's not completely separate from history. We can take things that are in Scripture and compare them to things that were happening in other cultures and countries and civilizations, I guess. Roman Empire, definitely. And use that to help us to go, okay, well, this is what they're saying is who is in leadership right now, so this happened about this time. And it gives us a context of where historically in our world these things were taking place. There's also literary context. It would be great if the Bible was nothing more than one big narrative. From start to finish, we could follow the characters, follow the lines of the stories without having to figure out what's happening. Everything would be easy to understand because it would all be the same. But that's not what it is. There are books of law, there's narrative, there's poetry, there's letters, or epistles, depending on who's saying it. There's prophecy, and sometimes all of these things can be within the same book. Now, one thing you have to remember about literary context is that if you are reading something that is poetry, it's not going to be literal. It's not like a narrative where if they say the tree is green, the tree is green. Well, if it's poetry, they may say that the tree is purple because it has a meaning to it rather than a literal effect. So a good example of this is Psalms 1:3, and it says this: "He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither." So if somebody is reading this and didn't realize it was poetry, didn't realize that the author is using alliterative wording, they might think that all Christians are supposed to literally be planted in the ground by a stream. I don't know about you, but I move too much for that. I have issues sitting still. I do. It's one of the things of I fidget, I move. I also don't know how I feel about squirrels and birds and things, it's not doing it for me. But we know that that's not what this scripture means. This scripture means that we are supposed to be close to God. We are supposed to be close to His Word. We're supposed to be close to the things of God so that we are given life and we are able to yield fruit when it's time and not wither. Okay, so let's take these lessons on context and apply them really quickly. Let's do a little bit of Luke, since we just finished up Geekmas and Christmas and everybody's doing all of the Christmas story things. In those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria. And all went to be registered, each to their own town. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. Now that was Luke 2, 1 through 5. Okay, so literary. We can tell by the way this is citing historical points, saying who's governor. It was the first registration of Quirinius being governor of Syria. All of these things are historical points that we can access and go, this is when that was. And to the original reader, they would have known when that was. They would have gone, oh, that was about 35, 36 years ago. We can also tell because of the way the author phrases things, like the sentence in those days, that this was meant to tell us a story. So this is narrative. Okay, let's get into the cultural and a little bit more of the historical. I kind of jumped the gun a little bit on that. But 1 through 3 gives us more of the historical context because we can tell that Rome has occupied Israel and they were doing a census to count how many Roman citizens there were. It also gives us a specific time based on who was the governor, Quirinius, and the fact that Caesar was Caesar Augustus, because there were multiple Caesars. Caesar was not just a dressing and not a first name. I have a friend named Caesar. Hi, Caesar. Shout out to him. He's a cool guy. But it tells us which specific Caesar it was. And so we can also take that, and with Roman history, we can go, oh, it fits in about here. And that's it. A lot of people use hermeneutics without knowing what it's called. And it's an important practice, not just for ministers, but for everyone, because you need to understand what's happening. Bad theology comes from not understanding the context. It just, from taking things and twisting them. And we don't want to do that. We want to be good stewards of what we've been given. And as a result, we have to look at all of these things, or at least consider them. Okay guys, that was our super special Extra Tuesday video. Don't forget that you will be getting a devotion this Friday. And if you want to go back and watch all of our Geekmas episodes, they're out there in a profile playlist, so you can find them. Also, shout out in the comments to Pathways that they do this program, and because of the way they do their programming, I was able to take this class while I was taking other classes, while I was working, while I was Christmas shopping, while I was helping Dallas at the church, while I was ministering to you amazing devoted geeks. Because of how they do what they do, it allows you to kind of fit it in within your schedule. And that's great. You should check them out if you're wanting to take classes. Okay, well, with all that being said, stay devoted, peace and love.